What's up everyone? Welcome to a new and special video where today I'm answering a question a lot of you may be curious about, and it's how really does the flour make a difference with Neapolitan style pizza? So today I'm testing the three most common flours side by side, and I'm going to show you how this dough mixes, ferments, and even bakes. So don't forget to watch till the end to see the final outcome, which really makes the difference of the texture of your pizza. Right here, I'm testing three of the most common flours you can find in any supermarket to make pizza. For this experiment, I'm taking each individual flour and making separate doughs. Using my Polish pizza dough recipe, these Polishes have been fermenting 8 hours at room temperature. All of them seem lively and bubbly, and the first dough I mixed was the bread flour with the most protein at 12.7%. It was a strong mix with a nice gluten structure, and it only took 9 minutes to mix. Now, I found that this flour was the most elastic, so you mix it and it comes together easily. It's not sticky, and it rises really nice, as you can see here with all the bubbles. As for the all-purpose flour with 11.7% protein, it took 10 minutes to mix. It does have a little bit less protein, but it absorbs the water really well, and it has a less physical gluten pool, yet it still becomes compact when you round it out, and it's a little bit stickier than the bread flour, but it does rise nicely. And for the 00 flour, at first when mixing the dough, it is shaggy. However, towards the end of the mix, it comes together nice and tight to the dough hook. It did take 12 minutes to mix. That's the longest out of these flours, yet it ends up looking nice and hydrated with an extensible gluten structure. So I allowed these dough balls to do their things. They all rose together, and now we're ready to bake them. Right off the bat, the bread flour surprises me. It rose to the top of the lid of this container. It almost wanted to burst out. And just touching this dough, it is super light, full of air, fluffy. I'm very impressed. So in this video, I'm going to do a margarita pizza side by side so you really see the differences here. So if you like my content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with any friends, because this information will be useful on your pizza making journey. Quite often, I've mentioned that bread flour does help in a lot of my pizza dough recipes. It's an easy substitution to that Italian tipo 0 flour. Look at the strength and extensibility of that gluten structure. Yes, this dough was a little bit harder to stretch than the others. However, you will see why it's so good. Now, all these pizzas are being baked in my electric Titoven oven around 800 degrees Fahrenheit on the stone temperature. With an amazing rise and cornicione, you could see that this was a successful bake. Let's put it to the side and move into the tipo 00 flour, which is an Italian flour that is the finest sifted flour, perfect for making pastas or pizzas. Texturally, this dough is nice and firm and stayed round throughout the whole proof. Tipo 00 is a flour that's more common nowadays to find in supermarkets, and it is a great choice because it's non-bromated, non-bleached. Italians try to keep it natural. Whereas the other two flours in this experiment, made by King Arthur, do have added ingredients like malted barley flour with vitamins and minerals. And to be honest, you can sense the difference between this Italian flour and the other two flours. The Italian flour is built to be extensible. Like, look at how much this pizza stretches without ripping. And this is really important, especially if you own a pizzeria or are making and baking multiple pizzas at a time. However, we have yet to come to the taste test, which is very important with this experiment. So don't forget to wait until the end, where we could discuss the aesthetics of this pizza, its texture, and flavor. Immediately, you could see that this pizza browned a little bit more evenly than the others, and it did have some char spots. Alright, now finally we're moving into the all-purpose flour,
and right out of the container it does feel a little bit more soupy, meaning the dough is a little bit more fluid and less compact. Now, a lot of people believe that all-purpose flour is usually for baking pastries like cakes, muffins, etc. However, the name all-purpose means that this flour is actually very versatile. You could even use it to make breads and baked goods like focaccias and pizzas. And this dough actually stretched the most smooth out of them all. I was very impressed, and believe it or not, all-purpose flour is the very first flour I started making pizza here on my channel. So if you go all the way back to my first videos, I have a pizza making video on the Hudson River where I used 100% all-purpose flour. And as you can see, it yields such a beautiful pizza. Now let's get into the gratings of these pizzas here. The all-purpose flour had a beautiful undercarriage, very mild with color. On the top part, you could see that the browning is more even. The crust is a little bit less crispy than the other two pizzas. As you could see, there's a lot of flop after the pie came out of the oven. Now the big brother, the bread flour, it has a nice undercarriage, more evenly brown, and on the top, the browning is a little bit more complex with spots of leoparding and a very high rise on this crust. Look at this beautiful cornicione, definitely filled with air here. As for the 00 flour, you see more of the Italian effect with the hard, aggressive leoparding on the undercarriage. However, the top is a little bit less leoparding as I expected. It's more evenly dark brown with a little bit of char, and the crust rose very moderately. Now overall, the 00 flour had the best dough. It was the most extensible, nice and robust, rustic and sturdy, and the flavor of the crust was superior than the other two doughs. It had a toasty, popcorn and grainy aroma to it. Whereas the bread flour, it was sturdy, yet it did had a little bit of flop after that pizza rested. This crumb was the most open of them all. It was super light and airy, as you could see. Yet it did have a slight chewier crust, which I didn't love, just like the all-purpose flour with a little slightly less chew. And the all-purpose flour was the lightest of them all. It was the lightest flour. However, it was a little bit soggy and it did lack in flavor. So the bread and all-purpose flour are kind of similar, yet different. The bread flour rises more.
So there you have it. After testing each of these flours, it is clear that each one has its own personality. Now let me know in the comments below if you plan on actually mixing or blending these flours, or which flour do you prefer the most? Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more awesome content like this, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.